or up.
All right, so after a million technical difficulties, we're going to bring Shawna on here, and we're going to get rolling. And this better show somebody coming in here in a moment. Well, there we go. We got somebody on. All right. We got 2 people here now. Man, thank God y'all can bear with me. All right, hang up your phone, Shawna, and hop on here.
All
right. Okay, we're really gonna do it this time. I think we're actually gonna get this gig rolling. As you can see, I started the first stream with some DO, like I've done plenty of times, but now they want to play games. It said they can't monetize my commercial, so now little cucky bird wants to play games, and they don't even wait for the person that has the rights to the music to say anything. They just, oh, he has music on. We're gonna chop his stream, so that's cool. Shawna should be on here momentarily, and we'll get rolling, and I will attempt to add some more people. You guys are badass. I can't believe that other stream had so much technical difficulties before the one they just chopped, but we're going to get rolling. We will get this thing going, I promise you that. So let's find Shawna. Should already be here. Yep. Hey, Andrew. What's going on, everybody? We'll get this thing rolling this time. I'll tell you that. We had some technical drawbacks. Then I just tried to start the stream again a minute ago, for those of you who've seen that, and they said something about not monetizing my commercial. So I don't know what kind of commercial they thought I was trying to do with Dio, but you know, he's not with us anymore, so that'd be pretty difficult. Let's see what we got here. Okay, Shawna's already invited. I really hope it's not juicing her from coming on. I shouldn't even have put her name on the title, because they know who she is. She goes all over the place informing people on their rights. They really, I'm sure these New World Order little freaking globalist chumps, I'm sure, do not like Shawna one bit. She'll teach people their rights. She goes all over doing it. And the deal is, so if you're on here, Shawna, and it's not letting you do what you want to do, pop out of my page and then pop back in, and that will work. I'm not letting Facebook burn us up this time. It's going to be absolutely ridiculous. What's up, John? Hey, Holly. I know I missed some other people that are here, but, and you guys stream here and there, you know how frustrating it can be trying to get stuff going. It can be super irritating. When I get home, I'm looking into some stuff here about how to do on a whole nother program, and that can still go on Facebook. Matter of fact, I have somebody who's a serious techie working on something right now, a potential web page, and an actual potential something, maybe even a network. Could even have Jason Lowe, me, Eric Keenan on here, and Shawna, bring on guests, bring on liberals to debate. I mean, the whole 9 yards. It could get silly. I mean, anything I ever dreamed of could come true. We'll see. One day I'd like to replace my job with spreading the truth, but we'll find out if that works. Still got a house to pay for. And we're adding Shawna. I told you we got this stuff worked out. Yeah. Well, tell me my rights, Shawna. Zuckerberg doesn't want people to know their rights. You know that? Oh, you're kind of slow motion. It'll get you there. You'll be there. You're fine. There, you're perfect now. Perfect. Look at you. You got the right distance. You're all set up.
Now we're together and we're online.
Looking all cute over there. Let's go, girl. Let's tell these people their rights. Well,
Okay.
you can.
Well, let's talk about that. Thanks. How about,
All right.
so what are our natural rights? And where do we get them from?
Exactly.
I want to talk rights and privileges. So what are our natural rights? There's everything that happens in nature. The reason that they call this, I want to tell you that this is what Lavoie and Ammon and Ryan and I were teaching at the Refuge. And the government called it a virus. They didn't want us to spread this virus. It's about our natural rights. And so what are they? It's everything that happens in nature. So things like it takes a male and a female to procreate. The birds, you don't have to tell them what to do, but they fly south for the winter and they trail in lines, and people stand in line. Let's take Black Friday, for instance, which is coming up. And we're going to have an iPhone store. And let's say that the first 10 people get a free iPhone. People begin to run as soon as they can to get to the store to stand in line. And the first one shows up just after midnight. And you get there about 2 o'clock in the morning and you're number 5. But how do we know that number 1 gets the first iPhone? Because he was the first in line, the first in time, right?
Exactly.
And we stand in lines because we are moral. So we come and we get in our line and now we're number 5. And we've been standing here and it's about 6 o'clock in the morning and we've been there a very long time. We've established a right. Remember, as soon as we took our position, we claimed our spot. When you have a right, you have to do 3 things. You have to claim it, you have to use it, and you have to defend it. So now we've claimed our right. At about 6 o'clock, when you have to go to the bathroom, what happens when you get out of line? Usually you use it or lose it. So there is a little way around this. For a short period of time, all the other people know that you were standing in line, especially the people behind you. And you can ask them if they could save your spot for a short minute. You have to run to the bathroom. And they probably will let you do that. But if you're gone a long time and go out and eat breakfast and take a long time coming back, you're less likely to have that spot. They probably might have moved up or the store opened and you lost it altogether. So now you've come back and we're standing in our spot. So now we claimed it, we're using it. Now somebody bigger comes along and they step in front of you. And you have to do something else. You got to make a decision. You have to defend it. So rightfully, because if you do, I mean, if you let them step in line, you just bumped the last guy of the 10 out. So you stole his position, or actually you lost yours, which means you'd have to abandon it and leave, let the guy stay there. Or you have to say to him, oh, excuse me, but the back of the line is back there. And if he's a more then if he isn't and he wants to be a bully, he can say, well, I'm not leaving, so make me. At which point he's probably, and you're going to need some help to defend yourself. So my theory is I go to number 10. I yell down to number 10 because he's going to lose his position if that guy takes place. Everybody in that line is likely to join with you in defending your position because you kind of joined what they call an alliance. It really is called government. That's how government forms. Who can't help themselves. And they help remove the man or the person who is being the bully that's trying to steal your position. If you try to dispose of something, what are the ways that you would dispose of it? The only ways we could come up with is you might sell it, you might trade it, you could, somebody could steal it, or you could just abandon it. So in this scenario, let's say that the bully's there and we decide to just go ahead and let him take it, we step out of line. Or he can force us out of line and steal it, or he could offer us $100 or something to buy our position. And maybe the $100 is worth it. Maybe you need $100 more than an iPhone. Or maybe he's got a coupon that he could trade for. Maybe he's got a TV from a different store and he could exchange it with you. So then you could trade. Or, like I said, you could just give it to him, or you might have a family member or a friend and you want them to be in that position and you just step out and give them your place. So those are all things of ways to defend. Now let's change the iPhone store. If it was just a picnic and it didn't really matter because there's a lot of food, enough for everybody, and somebody steps in line, even if they brought kids, how willing are you to defend it? How far do you want to go to defend it?
Depends
You
how
might
hungry
step
I am.
back and, pardon me?
I was just kidding. I said it depends how hungry I am.
Oh, that's true. That is true. But you know, sometimes we turn the other cheek and well, it is. But let's change that iPhone store now, or the picnic, into it depends on your life. They want to take away your life, or your liberty, or your property. Why property? Because property is the reason that is our wealth. That's our everything comes from property. That's why they wanted the United States. They wanted to leave England, was because they had no property rights. When somebody else owns the property, then they were taxed to death. They couldn't, no matter what they did, they couldn't excel. From property, land, comes all of your clothing, your food, your housing. Everything we have, all of our wealth in the world, comes from the ground. So if we have no property, they could weave it. Anyway, so the Second Amendment tells us how far we can go to defend those properties, or our life, liberty, and some call it the pursuit of happiness.
Right.
The Second Amendment says we can defend it clear to the death, right? So we need that Second Amendment.
Oh, yeah.
Remember, rights are not privileges. If somebody else owns the land, they can give you a privilege to live there, lease it, give you tax you. They can do anything with that property and you don't have any say. So it's important that we have them. So let's go back to when the United States was we first got the United States. We got the United States in 1776. We fought against Great Britain. And there was a peace treaty after we won the war. They made a treaty, and it was called the Treaty of Paris because it was first signed in Paris. It took them 4 years to complete that treaty, where everybody got signed on. How much of those 13 colonies or independent nations did in each of those independent nations, how much property was retained by Great Britain? None, zero, because Great Britain for independence. And that's why they were so excited, because now they had land of their own. They knew that they had to defend all of those 13 original colonies or nations, because if Great Britain came back and attacked one at a time, they would be able to overpower it. So they said, we've got to hire somebody to protect us. And that's when they created and hired the federal government. And in Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, the founding fathers put limits on that federal government that said that they could have 10 miles square in which to do their business. And that land was given up by 2 or 3 states, and they got their Washington, D.C. That was their place of business. That's called the District of Washington. Then we said that if you want any other land in any of the other states, then you must purchase it through consent of the legislature of each of any of those states, and it had to be only used for the purposes of dockyards, stockyards, buildings that actually pertain to defending our borders, defending our country. And that was it. That's all the powers they were given. And they had, except for when we increased our land, we had the Northwest Territory through war and other means that we obtained more land of this country. Well, I'm not going to go into all that, but we gradually increased our land, and so the Northwest Territory. But in Article 4, Section 3, Clause 2 of the Constitution, it says that Congress must dispose of that land. And remember, we talked about dispose. The 5 steps of dispose or sell, trade, right, give or gift it away, steal, or abandon it. So if they had to dispose of it, what did they do with the first part, the Northwest Territory, the Northeast Territory? They actually sold it so that they would have money to pay off their debts from the war.
Wow.
Then they got all the other territories and they began to open it up and gave it away. They told people to go out and homestead it. Stake your claims. Everybody ran to stake their claims.
Yeah.
What happened was, when a family would go out, say you wanted to run out and stake a claim, you would put a post in the ground and say, well, from here to here, from this mile to that mile, and there's a tree here, and I put a rock there and another rock over here. You claimed your piece of property. Then you were so happy and you built a little home on it. Well, you couldn't stay there forever because you needed to go out and gather in lumber for fires and those types of things. So as when you went out and left to go do something, let's say you all went for a picnic even, and you came back and some had come and occupied your home. And they said, here comes the bully. And they say, oh, sorry, we're not leaving. Try to make us. And they had wars over that. And people would try to defend their land and they couldn't. So they got smart and they decided that if they were going to protect themselves, they needed to join together, form an alliance, just like they did in the line at the store. You have to get the people of like mind. So they would say, okay, you're my brother. Why don't you build your house next to mine and claim your property? And my friend over here, you claim yours. And pretty soon they had little groups together of like-minded people or relatives. And they called that a village. And in those villages, they did that because nowadays we call it neighborhood watch. So they could watch their brothers or their friends' property while they went out to work, and then when they came back, and vice versa. So they'd take care of each other's property from any of the other people who were coming in trying to, the outsiders who were trying to steal it. Well, as they got a little village here and a little village there, they made one a little bigger, a city. And then they had resources in that area. because they either went to mining, or they were trying to gather water, or they were trying to do firewood, or there was a lake of some sort there. Entrepreneurs always rise to the top. They figured out a way to do business. Okay, I'm going to haul the water and you pay me for it. I'll take out the trash and you pay me for it. I will bring in firewood, or I will go out and build a boat and you work for me, and we'll go fishing. So they became entrepreneurial, and everybody now leaves their homes in the daytime to go to a job. And they trade a lot, but they had a job and they couldn't all stay home. So somebody had to watch their property. After they got a few villages over here, and then in another location, they had them over there, they put boundaries around that location. Does anybody know what that's called, with a few cities and a few villages in a certain area or location?
County.
They staked it out and it became a county. And in that county, they decided that they better, because they can't stay home, they don't want anybody outside of their county from another adjoining place to come in and steal all their stuff while they're gone. So they decided to hire a person, somebody that was big and strong, somebody they knew really well and that was honest. And that person would protect all their stuff while they were at work. They could count on him. It's kind of like the shepherd on the hill, and all the people took their sheep into a location and fed them. And they took the biggest, strongest, quickest person they knew to be the shepherd. And he watched over those sheep to keep them safe from wolves and bears and predators. So they decided to hire a person.
Sorry.
Somebody that was big. Okay. So here comes the wolves, and they're chomping at the bit, and they're trying to get the sheep. What does the shepherd do when there's more than one and he can't take care of them? His job was to call wolf. Remember the story about the boy who called wolf?
Right.
And everybody, all the villagers, the people, the men, women, and children came running to the aid to protect the sheep. That is called the militia. So the sheriff was the closest to the people, who has the responsibility to protect you and your property, your life, your liberty, and your property. And when he is got an outside force that is greater than he can take care of, he has the ability to cry wolf, if you will, and call up the militia. That's the people. So the militia is not a bad name. It's a good name. All of us should be part of the militia to protect our rights. And after you've gotten all of these counties, now remember, in a county, you also built a building. It's called a county building. And where we record those meets and bounds of where your property goes, so that nobody else can come in and encroach upon them. And that's all that office is good for. Their main purpose is just to record those rights so that nobody else can take them. After we've gotten a few towns and villages in a geographical location, we set up what they call the state. So a state is is a location, and it has borders, and they have to meet certain qualifications to become a state. But that's how the government disposes of the property. So once it becomes a state, they should come in on the same equal footing as the other original 13 states, which was called the equal footing, where the government retains none of that property. They get nothing left from it. And the governor, we vote in a governor, and he's supposed to be like the sheriff. His job is to protect the borders of that state. The sheriff protects the borders of the county, and the governor protects the borders of the state. And he has a responsibility, because he becomes the chief of all the militia. We call it an organized state militia. They've since changed that name. Instead of being an organized state militia, they've changed it to a National Guard. But you see, we are independent nations, and that's how they put that in there, to be a National Guard. The problem is, when the federal government decides that they want to have help, they go to the governor and they ask for that National Guard to back them up, which isn't a bad thing, except what happens come out of our state, out of the United States. They don't have a right to do that because we have a standing army that is set up by the federal government to protect the borders of our nation. We all should be protecting the borders of our nation. So militia is not a bad thing. And we have a Second Amendment, so all of us are militia. Anyway, so again, what did we learn? That our privileges are only come from government who tries to take away our rights. Those are not right. Privileges are something that they can take away from you, such as licenses and codes and statutes. Those are all things that they say you have privilege. And if they give you privileges, they have the right to take them away, which makes you a slave, makes you a citizen slave, not a natural person. So if we want our natural rights, we have to go back to the Constitution, which defends our rights, and we have to use our sheriffs and support them so that they will defend us. They are our first line of defense, or our last, however you want to call it. But they have more power in the sheriff than anybody else, including the President of the United States. If they don't want anybody to come in.
I think that's very important, Shawna, because you know, I didn't realize how much power the sheriff actually had until you were explaining to me a bit earlier, and I really don't think most people do. But yeah, explain a little more about the power that the sheriff actually has, because they have a lot of power, and you know, like I was trying to example earlier, is, you know, it's the FBI comes in and they really don't have jurisdiction over these cases, but they come in and they take them over, and then all of a sudden they're answering to the FBI. Well, because it's the FBI's pushing their power like it's something, but it really isn't bigger than the sheriff's power, is it?
No, the sheriff has that right. He has the jurisdiction because it came from the people. Remember, the government is of the people, by the people, for the people. And if you give that power, if the sheriff gives your power to the FBI or to any other agency, he has betrayed you, because you have that right. He has the power. He has he's supposed to have your best interest at heart. He's supposed to be protecting your rights, and we need to support him in that. And the people need to do that. So if we can get the sheriffs to stand up and defend our rights, then we don't have these out of control things like FBI, BLM, CIA, all these people that have been attacking become out of control, and they become a force to deal with. But your sheriff has that power to disallow them to come even into your county or into the state. The governor can keep them out of the state. And we need to make them adhere to that. They took an oath to the Constitution to uphold it. And if they aren't doing their job, then you need to get rid of them. You need to find somebody who will, because it's got to be, like I said, somebody who is the biggest, strongest, honest person that is brave, that will stand up in time. And you have to be willing to back him up. If we don't do this, then we have what we've got, a tyrannical kind of government that comes in and forces their way and their opinions and their taxes and their mindset on us.
Exactly.
State police, any of that doesn't have the authority. Only the sheriff does. Did you have any more questions?
So what is it that you know, what do you think it is that the FBI comes in and starts overrunning these things? I think that they threaten the sheriff, and the sheriff knows how powerful they are. And you know, I really think that honestly they're scared. They're scared because, you know, you've got these corrupt entities that are controlled by bureaucrats in corporate America, and it's also centralized power that I think they're scared. I mean, they're like, hey, I'm a sheriff of, you know, this county or whatnot, and they're afraid. I mean, the FBI comes in and says, we're taking
Well,
this
they
over.
are.
They know it's something
They
serious, and
are
they
on
know
their
that
own.
there's a big cover-up.
That's why they need the people to stand. Now, we're going to go back to a couple of things in history, and you're going to talk about Waco and Ruby Ridge and even at Clive and Bundy. They had a rapport with their sheriff. I'm going to tell you that they did, and the sheriffs were on board and protecting them for a while. What has allowed to happen is that these sheriffs are now being duped by the federal government. They're saying, okay, we're going to give you all of these weapons. We're going to give you tanks and riot gear and all this cool guns and all this kind of stuff. And we're going to just give it to you. We're going to give you a grant and you can apply for it and we'll give it to you. Do you understand what that does? That you're signing a contract. You're signing away your rights for these goods. And then they began to pay the sheriff. They'll say, we're going to up your pay. We're going to do all these things until now the sheriff is getting pay from the federal government. Ask your sheriff if he gets a check from the federal government. Ask them if they're being subsidized by these things. Because if they are, that means we're losing the power because we're the ones that pay them. And they're getting paid from the back door. And so who is their master?
So basically, it's almost like they're taking a bribe on the side, regardless of it. And on both ends of the spectrum, it's our tax dollars that are covering both. So we're covering the government to come in and basically spend our money twice and 3 times over to bribe our sheriffs, which we've already paid and elected. We've elected this sheriff. They have to run for office, correct?
Right, absolutely. As an elected position. And when that sheriff took his position, he had to swear an oath to the Constitution. All elected officials have to swear an oath to the Constitution. That's a federal and a state law. In every state and federally, they have to swear an oath to the Constitution. They'll uphold it. They're not upholding it if they're out enforcing these codes and statutes that are absolutely unconstitutional. So all those unconstitutional codes and statutes are being enforced, and they're nothing more than tax collectors. If they have a code that says you can only drive 65 miles an hour on the road, guess what it means? There's no codes, those kind of codes. They're code. Ask them if they're enforcing codes and statutes. That's what they're doing. Those are codes and statutes that are nowhere found in the Constitution. Now, if we decide as a people that we want to have certain places that you want to go, we want you to slow down. So we put up a caution sign that says there's little kids that are at school here or they're at play. You should put up caution signs, but you can't put up a speed limit. You have to, people have a right to do consciously. They should be doing the moral right thing. And if they don't, then they cause a problem. The only problem is if they injure somebody. Now, the whole prophets and the laws is this. We only have one real law, and the law is the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. If you don't want people to in your neighborhood, don't do it to them.
Right.
If you cause a problem, whoever you hurt, whoever you injure, you have to bring it back whole. You have to bring them back to whole. So it's not like, all right, you get a fine, and where does that money go? Back to the court. It didn't go back to pay the person who got injured. It went back to the courts.
Oh, no, they have restitution for that. They'll charge you on the side for that, but they don't press for the restitution ever. They never press as hard to get people paid their restitution, even if it's more due, or even if it's due that person and should be due that person the restitution. They're not going to send you to collections for your restitution, but they will send you to collections if you owe the courts. And it's ridiculous. Oh, Shawna's froze. Oh, there you are. You're still there.
Yes, I'm still here. Yes. So the problem is, if people allow these things to keep happening, then we feel like we're being suppressed. We are. They're nothing more than tax collectors. If those sheriffs and those highway patrol people have quotas to meet, All they are is tax collectors. They're not following the law. They
awesome.
swore to uphold. They need to read the law, and because the people have rights. And remember, we're we the people. We're not we the citizens. Citizens are the slaves of the government. Those people who work for the government are citizens. The rest of the people are not citizens. We're not slaves unless you choose to be, only by your consent. Only by your consent do you pay all these property, all of these taxes, and all of these. You signed the contract, you got to keep up to it. So don't sign the contracts. And that was the message that Clive and Bundy was trying to say. Don't sign the contract. Otherwise, you're under contractual law and you have to abide by that.
So how do you get around signing the contract, Shawna? How do you work that?
Just don't sign it. So if they're trying to tell you that you have to sign a ticket, for instance, you don't have to sign that ticket.
Really?
What are they going to do? Throw you in jail?
Exactly. So if you don't sign the ticket, what does that do? And how come is it, since we're on tickets, it might be a little off course here, but how come when you get a ticket and oh my God, it's going to escape me now, but how come it is, if you don't sign the ticket, what if you get pulled over and they say you're drinking while driving and you don't do your breathalyzer test? Yeah, I mean, they'll take your license away for a year. I mean, do they have the right to do this? And what's the way around that? I'm not saying you should drive drunk.
Well, absolutely. We'll get into that a little deeper because okay. I'm going to show you how that works, because you have to stop being a citizen. And when you're not a citizen slave, they have no control over you, because we have rights. We're not citizens. We're we the people. And so we are one people of we the people. And that's where we got to stand strong. Okay. And not allow them to dupe us into thinking and believing that we are who they said we are. That's not who we are. We are we the people. We are people of the land. We were created from the earth, just like it says in the scriptures. We're created from the dust by God. And our only king, our only master is God. We have no other. Amen. And that's why we have to be people on the land. So we have ways to teach people how to not be a citizen any longer, because it's only because of the way they have tricked you into thinking that's who you are, but you aren't. And that's how they enslave us. And it's all about trickery.
Definitely. I mean, I'm on the edge of my seat because I want to know, and I would really appreciate for you to give everybody at least a summary of the types of things that, not necessarily that you have to resist, but things that you don't have to comply to, because they do. That's what they do. They normalize everything. They make it seem like, oh, you didn't sign your ticket. Oh, you're a dummy. I mean, did you want to go to jail? I mean, so what types of things are that you feel are the most important to let people know that don't do this, don't sign that? What types of things do you feel are the most important for people to know, as far as don't get yourself into that because you don't have to, and people feel that you do?
Well, oh gosh, on that particular subject, I have to really go back to how to renounce your citizenship, okay? Because to renounce your citizenship, you have to realize what they've done to you. And that's the history that we need to teach you, of how you got to be that citizen and how you go about in reversing it, because we didn't know. Most people don't know, because it's gone down through so many generations that we just believe that because we've been told that. And
exactly,
just like there's no such thing as BLM land, there is no such thing. When we're talking about land, we only have two types of land. We have territory, we have states. There is nothing retained by the federal government, because they cannot do that. I don't care what they're trying to pull the wool over your eyes. But the BLM was only a bureau that was put together as a management company, no more different than the landscape guy down the street that we contracted with to come and take care of
I
our
think
property.
I think these days
Because
people
all of
hear
a sudden he decides that, sorry?
people these days hear BLM so much, I think that they think of Black Lives Matter, but it's actually the Bureau of Land Management that we're talking about here, right?
Absolutely, sorry. Yes, the BLM is the
No, you're fine.
Bureau of Land Management, and they are a managing company, and that's I mean the organization, and they were only created because of the ranchers that were having range wars over who had what property where they could graze, and they came out to help manage. At no time did they ever or could they ever own the land. But just because they said it's theirs or the federal government claims it's theirs, it wasn't true. They didn't own it. And so just because I gave you a quick claim deed to a piece of property or you made it yourself and took it in and recorded it, it didn't make it yours. You can't just usurp it. You can't steal it. People, nobody gave them authority to do that.
Right.
It's no more than, like I said, the lawn key, your yard groomer. I can't think of the name. Anyway,
Yeah.
So a landscape company comes in and you hire them to take care of your property, right? And then after they've been doing it for 5 years, they all of a sudden start changing this contract. You have a contract with them, and they change the contract and say you got to sign this contract, but you don't want to because now they've decided because instead of a lawn they want to put in cactus. Instead of cactus they want to put anyway. Now you no longer have a lawn. Your yard is useless for the purposes that you had it for, and they're telling you, well, you have to do it our way. Wait a minute. You don't have to sign the contract. You can fire them at any point in time. When they come in and start saying that they own your property, they put their name on your property. That's what they've done with claiming land, which is they say is the BLM land. There is no such thing. They're a managing company. They never were. Nobody gave it to them. Nobody sold it to them. They can't have it. And unless you step back and allow it, you have to do the same thing. Claim, use, defend. Remember that. So if you're not defending your rights, you lose them. And that's why they came so hard after Clive and Bundy. He knew that he did not sign the contract. He knew that he owned that property and those water rights and those mineral rights. He knew that. And he had the sheriff protecting him for many years. And then suddenly, the sheriff is bought off by another entity, and he doesn't protect Cliven's rights any longer. I'm discovering that that's what happened in Waco. That's what happened in these other places. They were friends with the sheriff. The sheriffs knew what kind of people they were, and they were good. So David, what's his name? Anyway, I got too many names in my head. And so in all of these other situations, that's what happened. The real people knew that these were good people, not evil people, and these thugs, if you want to call them, a tyrannical government comes in and starts forcing their way and bringing in their tanks and their militaries to attack their own people. And it's all about the conspiracy against the American people. It's not to help you, and that's what we're facing. And we got to stand up for our rights.
They always try to make it sound like they're helping you. They always try to make it sound like, even off subject, Facebook is better with friends. No, Facebook really doesn't want you to have friends. Facebook really wants to kick you off of your stream, cut your stream off, unfriend people for you, make you redo your identity with Facebook. They've done that to me like 5 or 6 times in the last month and a half. The harder you go, the harder they mess with you. And it's the same as everything else, because all these people are in cahoots together. They're all, New World Order. This is all stuff that they've been trying to do for what, 100 years?
At least. Yes, that's true. They
make it seem like it's normal. They make it seem like this is the way it is. You know this. No, yeah, we only know what we've been told.
Or else I'm going to come in there and force you, right?
Yeah. Yep.
You're going to do what I say. And then they get this power trip, and that's what they're doing, is they're trying to force you to do. So that's nothing more than communism. And right. Force is communism. They're calling it socialism. Oh, the rich have to give to the poor. Wait, that's not how it works. Socialism is communism, but not with as much force yet. But they do take away from the rich and give to the poor. That's not how it's supposed to work. If they want to do to live in a loving world, it's because you should love your neighbor and you want to go help them and you do what you can to help them. That's how it's supposed to, but it has to come from the heart, from the people, because they want to do what's right, not because they're forced to do it and they can just come and steal it from you. We have a little story about that. It's kind of like the two neighbors that live next door. One of them decides to have a bunch of children, so they have a dozen children. And the other neighbor collects cars, and he's probably got 10 or 15 cars, and they're all, spend a lot of money and time fixing them up, really nice cars. But that was what he wanted to do. That's what he chose to spend his time on. Then along comes the guy with all the children, and his car breaks down, and he can't get where he needs to be. And the other neighbors say, well, hey, your neighbor's got a whole bunch of cars. Tell him to give you, we should make him give you one of his cars. Well, hold on a minute. If the neighbor wants to give you a car, he has that, he's not blind. He can see it if he feels like giving you one. But how about happens this guy doesn't have any children, he wants one, do you want to give him one of your kids? You're going to make him give you one, make you give one of your kids to him because he doesn't have one just because he wants one? Right. You made a choice. This is not how it works. This is not, socialism is not everything's equal for everybody. It's right. Your choices. You have agency to make those choices. And then you decide if you want to, but nobody can make you. That's not right. Even if you get a whole neighborhood together and say, okay, we vote that you give one of your cars to the neighbors. That's not how it works. That's called democracy, and we don't have a democracy. This is a republic. And so we have to remember it was the democracy that hung Christ, because we don't want socialism. We don't want communism. We're just one step behind. In fact, we're there. That's what they're pushing for. So where's the real true conspiracy? It's against the globalists. It's against the people who are out there to line their own pockets with our money and to make us as their slaves. And that's what they are. That's what they've been doing. And you guys, we got to stand together. We got to stand up for this right.
We do.
And they'll probably
that's why it's so
get
important.
after you for putting this out.
That's why it's so important for
virus.
People like you that know these things inside and out and can explain them well, to put the stuff out there. I know you do, but I think that if we can, we can get you going on streams and on shows or whatever. I mean, you can get the information out a lot quicker, and with less effort. Right in the comfort of your own home. And I mean, people need to know these things. I mean, of course, we all know our rights to some degree, but some of the stuff that you say, I'm just like, really? Oh, and I think that everybody to some degree with a lot of the information that are going to feel the same way, because, you get accustomed to what to be normal. It doesn't make it right. It doesn't mean there's anything right about it. And a lot of things we know it's not right, but we just feel like, well, that's just how they screw you, and it's normal. So it's okay. Like, oh, you got put in Facebook jail? Ha 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 ha. So did I. No, it doesn't make it right. I mean, yeah, we could chuckle about it. It's really not funny though. It's really BS, and it's really killing our First Amendment right. And people say, oh, well, they have a right to do that because they own it. No, they don't. They get a lot of, they get tax breaks. Like, I don't even think they literally pay any taxes on their gazillion dollars they make off of us on these social media networks. But if they want to go ahead and kick you off because you're leaning to the right, they're leaning to the left, the bottom line is they do.